McFarlane. You're here for Kingdoms of Amalur: The Reckoning. You're a cartoonist, writer, designer, entrepreneur, and now executive art director for 38 Studios. I have to ask you, what prompted the move to, or not, the extension into video games?
In its simplest form, all those other categories you just mentioned, they're all just different fields of art. And so as a guy who makes a living doing art, I'm sort of curious about all the places that art goes. So, you know, that's why I've sort of ventured off into books and novels and animation, TV, toys, music, director. Oh, now there's this other thing called video game. I mean, you know, t-shirt design, it's all art, right? I mean, so to me, I go, here's another area of art that has its own set of rules, and there's starts and stops of what you can and can't do in it. And now let's go and see what the imagination can come up with when we go into some of those crazy categories.
Okay, so for those who get to hear about Reckoning, it was announced last year.
Correct.
What's it about? We know it's an RPG, but can you give us a bit more background into the whole kind of genre and the actual story behind it?
Again, it's as you mentioned, it's an RPG game. Pretty big, pretty wide. You know, it's over 200 plus hours of playtime in there. It's just going to continue to grow. The quest in and of itself is that we have this device called the Well of Souls. And the Well of Souls, when you first start the game, your character comes from the Well of Souls and has been reanimated. It's a blank slate, which is sort of different than a lot of other games where the character you have has a history. We're basically saying that your character has no history. He's a blank canvas. You now are the one that is now going to sort of drive their new destiny. And depending upon who that character is in terms of their physical abilities and what kind of weapons and how you level up, the response of the game will act differently depending on how you actually build your character per se and how they interact with some of the people. Now, given that, there's a whole backdrop than the 10,000 year history that R.A. Salvatore, who came up with sort of this in-depth storyline, built, not the 10,000 years in the video game, but that backdrop is in there of what happens once you actually create the Well of Souls that now changes everything that we know about sort of humanity in its simplest form. Because we're taught through certain religions today that can't happen. So now they have to deal with the consequence of what does that mean, and how has the world now reacted differently to it, and what's the cause and effect. I mean, again, one of the things you want to do, not necessarily that if you're a player you have to get involved in it, but there has to be a sense of logic in your fantasy world, right? That stuff has to make some kind of sense, that there's no component that's sort of just there because it just would be interesting in and of itself. That if we say that there's going to be, you know, a downfall of a civilization, then all the remnants of what that will do to some of the other components of the game have to now be there. And so for us, and for me, the fun of creating a game literally from scratch is layering in all the logic, layering in all the art, layering in all the sort of the broadness of all of this. And then once you're done with all of it, you turn it over to the player and you go, you're the director, have at it, right? We just built the museum and the playground. You now get to basically go and do whatever you want with it, and if you don't enjoy it, to some extent, half the problem is yours, not ours, because we put a lot of stuff in there.
Wow, it's starting to sound like we're going to have to get myself. How much of the trademark visual McFarlane style is going to be in the game? Are people going to look at this now and go, yeah, Todd McFarlane, I can see it, that's the one? For all the hardcore loyal, and I've got lots of McFarlane fans, they will probably be disappointed. And the reason is that the game wasn't meant to be Todd McFarlane's Reckoning, right? Yeah. I mean, I'll do a video game where my name's at the top and I'll have complete visual sort of input into it. What my task was is that there's this many people that know who I am in the world, and there's this many in the world that play video games. I was way more concerned about these people than this people right here, right? More money in that video.
No, well, there's just more eyeballs.
True.
And as somebody who does art, sort of the thrill is, I don't want to be an elitist artist that just does gallery painting showings once a year. Everything I do, I want to spread it out and canvas the entire planet. And as soon as I'm done, I ask people if there's any life on Mars so we can go to another planet. So to me, there's a big group of people who play video games, and there's sort of a comfort zone, if you will, in what they expect their video games to sort of look and feel and play like. And one of the first things was to actually go, we're staying within the comfort zone here. You know, we'll make it as interesting, as cool as possible within that. And given that we're doing a fantasy backdrop, I mean, there's still going to be elves and wizards and trolls and, you know, magic spells and castles and everything else that you sort of expect, the obvious stuff. We just have to make it as cool as possible, but it doesn't have to look like my stuff. Yeah. That was not what I was trying to do.
So when you're obviously doing research for the development of the game, did you obviously went to play it a few? Is there anything that you saw that, and you've obviously put in, that you just went, yes, I want that? I can see like throw the different styles of throwing, magic, that kind of thing. I'm assuming like you basically went, yeah, I want that in the game.
It wasn't necessarily. I mean, the short answer is yes. You look at what is out in the marketplace, right? Because nobody creates in a vacuum. So you look at what's successful, and then what you do, and again, we had dozens of people in the room as we're going over this exercise. You sort of look at the stuff that you like, and you go, you know, here's what we learned from it. We need to make those components in there. And then the more interesting one was the what if list. Like, you know, what if we actually added this to that game, or this to that game, or this to that? Well, we can't because it's their game. So now it's our games, right? And some of the best ideas in the world start off like this. Some shy guy in the corner going, I know this sounds stupid, but what if we did? I mean, that's where it begins, right? Somebody raises their hand, sort of says something, and everybody in the room goes, oh my gosh, why didn't we think of that? The obvious was staring us in the face. So we made a list of, here, with 20 different people in the room, we came up with a list of 20 different things that they would have liked to have seen in the last game they played. Not across the spectrum of the entire game, yeah. just a component of it. I don't get why this looks like that, or that plays like that, or why the menu has to look like this. I mean, just simple stuff. And we decided that we were going to try and tackle as many of those pieces as possible, not to reinvent them, but to just make it a little more sort of usable and friendly and interesting and intriguing, and actually maybe even work better. I mean, again, let's take the action that we're quite proud of. The action, I think, is an upgrade from a lot of RPGs, because the RPGs aren't necessarily known for their actions, right? It's sort of a step you go through to get to the end of your quest. Well, here we wanted to intentionally say, well, hold on, since you have to have action, and since you have to spend time developing action, why not develop in a way that actually looks cool as hell, right? I mean, why hold back? Why do a vanilla version of it? Why not do it? You know, if you're going to kill, I mean, I've said, if we're going to kill somebody, then why don't we kill better than anybody else that's out there? I don't get it, right?
Go for the big explosions.
Right, if you're going to go big, right? If you're going to have a boss, and you're going to have to fight them and send them 10 feet, why not 110 feet? I mean, why not just blow everything up and make it big? It doesn't mean that it takes away from the depth of what this RPG game is. It just means that if you happen to go into that corner, which is, oh, I now need to do some action, that it's just going to be as good as you can possibly come up with. And so if we upgrade all those elements, and there's like 20 categories, action, or you know, the action part of it just being about one, and we can get a little bit of an upgrade in 20 categories, then that's a significant upgrade, because it's not just in one area, it's in a little bit in 20 areas. And then all of a sudden somebody walks away saying, wow, I played Reckon. I play a lot of RPG games, but that Reckon, that's kind of cool. That's it. That's a complete home run success for us if they walk away and only say that.
So obviously Project Copernicus is the code name for the MMO of built in the same kind of world, fantasy. Is there going to be a linkage, or can you tell us something about Project Copernicus at the moment?
Yeah, not now. I mean, we're here promoting the EA console version of it. Yeah. So I think later on when we launch that, then we'll go through all these iterations and stuff like that.
So you'll be seeing me again.
Oh, okay.
In 3 words, why would someone need to buy this game?
Well, in 3 words?
Or as many as you can do.
Oh. Because, so let's lose because I don't want to waste that word.
No worries.
If you enjoyed video games and you just like to go for a ride, then we think that, and you're an RPG player, we think that you're going to have to tighten your seatbelt a little bit tighter on this ride than you are in the past, because we had the luxury of taking all these people who had developed RPG games and bring them together and be able to correct a couple of the flaws that were there. And it's just that when you slightly correct 20 flaws, then all of a sudden the game has a feel about it that the RPGs that are out there in the marketplace don't have. I think if you compare our game now compared to the other RPG games out there, you're going to see the difference that we bring to it from whether you just want to go straight questing, you want to go and just sort of mash and kill a bunch of things. We're going to have everything in there, and it's going to be as big and wide and detailed as you possibly can. So all I can say is just play it once, and I think the answer will be there. I mean, it's hard to explain art, right? I mean, At the end of the day, the consumer said, don't know what art is, I know what I like, right? The consumer's going to make the end result, but I believe that they're going to see the little nuances that are going to add up to it just feels better than the other RPGs.
Well, it sounds like your heart and soul has been poured into this game. I, for one, can't wait to play. I believe it's out early next year?
The console game is going to be coming out in the UK here February 10th. Is when you can get your hands on it and go and tear it apart.
Look, thank you very much. Cheers.